Good afternoon, everybody. It's Carpo. I'm doing kind of a personal course in comparative religion, and it's kind of a college course, but I'm doing it on my own time thing. But there's a series of philosophical lectures that I've been listening to, and many of the ideas that get conveyed in these lectures, they kind of slip through the cracks, or maybe ideas that I already knew or that I've already processed. But once in a while, certain things come along that kind of connect the dots. And I think this is why it's so important that we listen to as much information as we can so we can connect the dots properly. And the particular situation I was going to speak of here is the idea of the Puritans in America, and how our country got to the point where it is, where there seemed to be a large portion of the country who believed that we really are a nation representing God, that we are the last vestige of hope, and that the West is God's new land. Now, when Francis Bacon wrote A New Atlantis, many people used this as kind of a catalyst for turning the Americas into that land, the New Atlantis, in the belief that whether you believe religiously or symbolically that there was an ancient culture that was wiped out because we had gotten too far past our principles and ideals, and how now we needed to bring that back up to par and live in this light of God. In 1776, over 85%, I believe, of the U.S. were Puritans. And they were on a new Puritan paradigm where they were basically saying that the United States was God's land, and that these biblical ideas referred to just as much to the past as to now. That we could take these ideas of the Bible and fit them to the new land, that it was our last hope. And Israel fits in there, all these different lands and places when you start to understand the meaning of what the people thought of these places as and how important they were. And when the Puritans came and started trying to turn America into this new Atlantis, there's an angle to consider that I think people... we hear a lot about the Native Americans and how, that was basically... it was, can't think of the word I'm looking for, but when the Americans came or should I say when the Europeans came and started to wipe out the Native Americans, the justification that was used for that, because we can look back on it now and say, my God, what were they thinking? How could they get themselves to, how could they convince themselves this was okay? These were religious people. They considered the Native Americans to be the Canaanites, as in the Bible. These were the brutal, the rough, the folks who that were native to the land, that didn't know any better, that had to be converted, that were heathens. And then we start to see the structure of America being built as if we got to wipe out the heathens, and then we have to start fresh. We have to start with the good religion, what we think is right. And then over a period of time, America has grown into this launching platform for wars and for piracy and for exploitation of other resources. But in the eyes of the folks who created it, this was all done in the light of God, because we are the new controllers of God. We are the bishops of the world. We are the ones who tell people how it should be. Now, this is completely false thinking, but we've carried it into today's world to where we still think that this is okay. And there's a strong religious implication involved in why we think America is so superior. Now, the plan in that sense, that would mean that in my mind there would be a plan to make this God's land, to make it fit what they think God wants. And then on the other end of the spectrum, we have a whole lot of people blaming, let's say Freemasons, for example, blaming Freemasonry, saying that these are the folks who have created this structure. These are the people that the Freemasons have created this country and built it up in order to run the world, new world order, whatever. This isn't the. I'm trying to work around this without getting involved in it. There is a huge conflict between extreme religious folks, let's say hardcore Christians, and Freemasons, because they think that Freemasons are anti-God. So we have two opposite groups that are claimed to be running the show, that supposedly have the power, and ultimately neither side really has the power. It's just a matter of perception. And the further I get into this, the harder it is to explain. But when you look at the things that we've done to our history, the things that we've done to the Native Americans, things that we've done to other countries, they have almost always been done not necessarily in the name of religion, but in the name of, let's say, nationalism. So if we were doing this for America, but America was designed as the land of God, then what it is it's just a way of circumventing admitting that you're doing things for your God. So we say we're not doing this for religion, we're doing this for, values, or because of the integrity or how we think the world should be run. And if that doesn't agree with other people, well, then they're not in God's light and they don't understand. So I respect the original idea of the Puritans and the idea behind being a Puritan, which was almost like the Buddhist who leaves the material life, to try to live in simplicity. But when we have so many different people having different ideas of what that means, then it's almost impossible to know what's behind the scenes and why things are done. But nobody has the right to say that any land is the land of God, and that's just been used as a justification for way too long. So when Native Americans, I've had a lot of racism against me just for being white from Native Americans, claiming that it's my people that did this, my people that did that, and it saddens me, but I understand that there's anger behind there, but it's just another form of racism. I've met more racist Native Americans than any other race. I almost feel like, I even feel weird talking to them because I feel like they're looking at me like the white man. But the reality is, for the natives out there, you can look back and see that it's not the white man. It is the church that has done to you what it did. Because the church is the one that has given people justification by saying, this passage says they're heathens. And I know a lot of folks out there won't agree with that and may say, oh, bullshit, you can't blame the Bible for everything. And I'm not. I'm not blaming the Bible. I'm blaming the people who think that they understand the Bible, who use it to better their way of life while impinging on others. I don't remember how many millions of natives were here before we wiped them out. Sorry, not we, before they wiped them out. But, understand that all races out there have had, just about every race out there has had some sort of, I guess, racism against them, and that includes whites. And although the whites living in America don't seem to get it as often, if you're a white guy that's ever gone down to the ghetto at night, you might see, be looked upon differently. And but generally, we don't understand. White folks are not, looked upon as the minority in very many situations, at least not in the U.S., not in the Western world. So most of us don't really understand, But I've also been hated on by blacks by saying that it's my ancestors' fault that slavery happened. When slavery, you don't need to blame white people for slavery either. You can also blame the Bible or the believers of the Bible or various religions for utilizing the idea that it says it's okay to have slaves, that the slaves should respect their owners. All these things can be ultimately geared back toward man's selfish notion that what he wants at the moment is right, at the expense of any other. So I'll just leave it at that, and yeah, just some thoughts about what they really intended for this country, what they really wanted to go with it, and they wanted it to be God's new land, and it's not. It's all God's land, everything, every one of us. Namaste.